So I am being joined today by Dr. Jonathan Jenkins. He is a clinical sports psychologist who has worked with professional teams such as the Red Sox and the Patriots. And then he also is the co-author of a book, Mentality Wins. He's also worked with several other athletes, Division I athletes, to kind of focus on their mindset. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk.
So as you know, I've read your book and I think it's fantastic. And although I'm not an athlete, a former athlete, right? I when we were chatting, I had said there's so many good bits of information that non-athletes can take away from this book because you and Dr. O'Brien wrote it from the perspective of an athlete, but I think anyone can benefit from what you two are saying in this book. So what drove you to write this book given, your professional history, et cetera? Because writing a book is a big deal.
It's definitely a big deal. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having the opportunity to talk with you and be able
Yeah.
to chat about these important topics. First things first, let's get something straight. You're still an athlete. you know, I use I use that term really broadly. It's basically my idea is you to using your mind and your body to do something that's important to you, to accomplish a goal, to be able to complete a task. So it might happen in an athletic space, like you're a tennis player, you're a Paralympian, or it could also happen in the space of just moving through everyday life. Like you're an athlete that uses their body to make sure you accomplish things that are important to you. And so we use the environment or the atmosphere of sport and competition to talk about these important performance and mental health topics, but it's applicable
Mhm.
to anybody, right? If you are a lawyer, if you're a parent, if you are a teacher, you could still utilize a lot of these strategies to enrich your life and keep your mental health in check.
Yeah, 1000%. And there was, so when we were speaking, one of my, in the intro, I'm not going to give away the full book, but in the intro, you wrote about your experience playing lacrosse
Mhm.
and how I believe it was your therapist said, normalize your mistakes. Do you want to speak about that a little bit and
Sure.
why that's such a game changer?
Sure. So I would say just typically I run more on the anxious side versus the I'm chill side. I want to be on the chill side, but I run a little hot in the anxiety. And so when I played high school lacrosse, I was in a setting where I'd known these dudes since middle school. We had great relationships on and off the field. But then when I matriculated to college, all new people playing at a higher
Mhm.
level away from home. And so I just felt really uncomfortable with myself with that transition, not in any crises, but just a fish out of water. I went from the Northeast down south, so there was a lot of cultural change.
Yeah.
And then playing lacrosse, there was this established program with a lot of these upperclassmen who kind of knew everybody, knew the deal, knew how to play collegiately, and I was getting really nervous. So being the perfectionist type A person that I was back then, I wanted to catch every pass. I wanted to score every goal. I wanted to get every ground ball, which is inevitably impossible. And so I
Yeah.
created this hyper sense of failure when I'd make a mistake. And so I had to go see a therapist about that because I was just getting so tight, so nervous that I really couldn't play nor eat or drink. And what the therapist said was, after talking about for a while, we were like, hey, flush it. Um, because I'd usually cuss on the field. Cussing on the field would either get you in trouble with the refs or get you thrown off by your coach. So flush it sounded just like my favorite curse word when I was 18, 19 years old. And it reminded me that, yep, that was a poopy play. Like flush it down the toilet. You don't need to look at it. You don't need to examine it. Just let it go so that you can move on throughout the course of your day. And humor always resets me. It brings me back to my baseline, gets me to chill out and calm down. So using a cue phrase that was humorous brought me back to the present moment. And that's something that I try to do every now and again when I need it. And I'll kind of say flush it to kind of bring me back to my 18-year-old days, but it's something that's stuck with me as a really successful tool that helps me get back to baseline.
Yeah, and even in the book you had mentioned your therapist told you to make a mistake on purpose.
Right.
What what was the reasoning and what would you recommend for people who, and I know a lot of people in this mindset, me included, where I want to do everything the right way and it has, perfect is the enemy of good.
Mhm.
Perfect
Mhm.
is the enemy of good, but I want everything to be meticulous and perfect, and I get stuck in these rumination loops where I'm like, "That's not good enough," etcetera. What when your therapist said, "Make a mistake on purpose, drop the first pass," like, how did that change your perception going forward?
I was like, "What are they talking about? That makes no sense," initially. Um, but now I can kinda see it being in the therapist's shoes now, this idea of 2 things. 1, mistakes is where growth happen, and so you
Mhm.
need to put yourself in positions to be able to make mistakes, to be able to then gather the data and figure out, "Okay, I went from here, I wanna go here. What's the space in between? What's the skills I need to get from this level to this level?" And then the second piece is one of my favorite Viktor Frankl quotes from Man's Search for Meaning. Man's not meant to live in a tensionless state, but the struggling and the striving for a goal worthy of them. And I apologize if I butchered that quote, but that idea that if we just search to take the easy route, we're never going to get strong. If I go to the gym and only lift 5 pounds weights, even though my body is capable of lifting more, I then can't complain that I'm not getting stronger. I have to put myself in
Mhm.
uncomfortable positions, 5 pounds to 10 pounds, 10 pounds to 20 pounds, 20 pounds to 40 pounds, and let my body and my mind adjust to that tension, and then I have strength, and then I have determination. Then my body and my mind can be resilient. And when I was in college making those mistakes, the mistakes kept me from taking those risks to being in tension
Yeah.
filled situations because I was so comfortable being complacent and in the shallow end or the safe area. And when I was able to have enough internal resilience and comfort in myself and security with myself to be able to go deeper into the water, I found that, wow, I was more capable and those tiny mistakes didn't matter as much as long as I was enthusiastic, I was energetic, and I was moving forward with the right intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanna point out something, and you brought this up in your book. So many people mistake anxiety or fear for danger.
Mhm.
That's because your body truly does have that same physiological response. When you are excited, it has the same physiological response as when you're scared. And your body can't truly differentiate between the 2. It's really about your perception of it. And I think normalizing mistakes is so important because it trains your nervous system. And I'm a big proponent and fan of nervous system regulation because that is also how you grow is you train your nervous system. This is safe. This is fine because otherwise we stay in the familiar. But when you start to reframe it and you're telling your body, no, like I'm okay, like this is just excitement. This isn't fear, that is the only way, in my opinion, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, you're the professional here, for you to be able to break out of that mold and grow and change. Because I think so many people just stay stuck and in this, rumination of fear, and they don't think that they can break out because they're not framing it correctly. And I think your book does a really great job of saying, like, your mindset is your most powerful tool.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things that comes to mind is your brain doesn't have a brain, right? Your brain is the brain. So it's not necessarily able to do the soft skills at times of interpreting a response. It just knows that a response came in. So it knows that
Mhm.
you're anxious. It knows that you're breathing heavy. It knows that your heart rate has gone up. It knows that your skin is or your hair is standing on edge. But it can't necessarily know if that means that because there's a dragon or a lion in front of you, or it means that you're about to do public speaking or you're about to ask somebody out on a date. And so what you need to do is use your brain, your ability to communicate with your brain to help your brain understand fully what's going on, because it's almost like your brain is observing it almost behind a closed door or inside a
Mhm.
box. And so your ability to describe to your mind and to your body what's happening, either verbally or just with the sense of your body gaining its control back, allows for that fight or flight response to be more nuanced towards the things that are potentially physically and emotionally dangerous versus the things that are really stressful or the things that are really enjoyable or the things that we highly value. But I think if everything's being put in the same folder, your body never learns how to differentiate between the gradation and the variety of experiences that you're going to have.
Yeah, and how do you recommend someone do that, especially if they're not working with a therapist or a professional and they're just kind of in that fight or flight system? How do you recommend if they've never done anything like that before, what would be the first step for them to start reframing?
Well, I think one of the most common, non-life threatening, but feels like life threatening things that people do on a regular basis is public speaking. Right. So there are
Mhm.
many talented people, and their fear of public speaking keeps them from going out into the community and sharing their love or their wisdom with us. And so one of the things that we do as psychologists is called graduated exposure. So we take somebody who's afraid of public speaking and we start very, very small. So we make a list of types of public speaking or speaking that could be anxiety provoking. And then we work our way up it almost like a video game until we get to the final boss where we actually do
Yeah.
the public speaking. So we might start with just speaking to a friend or a group of friends. Then we might move to recording yourself and having it play in front of a group of people. Then we might move to speaking in public, but not being visible. So maybe behind a curtain or behind some type of block so that there are people in the physical space, but they're not looking directly at you. And then we can move all the way up to getting to that public speech, which might be anxiety provoking. All along the way, we are almost inoculating, getting the body used to
Mhm.
the levels of anxiety and providing the client or the patient with strategies to deal with it, when it's 1 out of 10. So that as you build up, you're building up a tolerance for 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. So when you get to that 10 out of 10 situation, you've had both the memory of positive experiences and successful outcomes from the practice, but you also now have the skills and the strategy to get you through 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 type situations. So when somebody has a
Yeah.
fear, I say start small, start with low hanging fruit. You have a fear of spiders? Okay, look at pictures of spiders. You have a fear that's too anxiety provoking? Draw pictures of spiders, even if your drawing is horrible like mine. Be able to get exposure to it and work your way up.
Mhm.
Everything doesn't have to be done 2 or 3 days from now. It could take you a while. The goal is that you get to the goal. It's not the goal is you get there quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did an episode about confidence, right? And people are not born confident. Science proves that. And there was this very famous study by Albert Bandura out of Stanford. But he said the best way to develop confidence is through mastery experiences. So, exactly what you just said, exposing yourself to it, proving I survived this and I can do it again. Um, and I am so glad that you brought up public speaking because it's so funny. I was talking to one of my very favorite people yesterday, and he was asking about beta blockers. And he's
Mm,
like, "Well, what do you think about?" He's in a very professional role, has to present to very important people. He's like, what do you think about beta blockers? What do you think about beta blockers? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm meeting with Dr. Jenkins. I'll get his opinion. I just from my own like initial research, it seems like it suppresses the response, but it doesn't stop the mental noise.
mm.
Do you know anything about those by chance?
Well, I'll say I can't speak on it like a psychiatrist, but from the
Mhm.
psychological lens that I can speak on it from, yes, I think beta blockers are great for dulling or addressing the physiological response. But if somebody has neck up anxiety, excessive worry, rumination, brooding, it might not touch that. If they have neck down, where
Mhm.
their body's really agitated, they're tight, they're going to have a panic attack, that could address it, or neck up and neck down, that could be helpful. But if you're the type of person that kind of lives in your head with your anxiety, the beta blocker might do some things, but it might not be all the way there. That being said, talking to your general practitioner, the doctors that you're working with, a psychiatrist is probably going to be your best thought. But when people are having more of a mental or in your head anxiety, we really need to attack it with cognitive strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I literally just posted your reel today in preparation of this recording about getting therapy.
Oh, yeah.
And and the importance of it. And I had made commentary on it because I think so many people are so afraid to ask for help because it, in my opinion, I think that they feel like it's a reflection of failure.
Mhm, mhm.
And in your reel, and you can speak more on this because it was very eloquent. It's like you deserve to live the best life possible, right?
Yeah.
And getting therapy to get you there is so important. Um, what what was your, intention on posting that? Like, what do you typically see? Because I know that I've been in therapy for quite some time, and it has been such a game changer, but the start was hard. The start was
Oh,
hard to
totally.
admit, like, I need help. So how do you recommend someone getting to that point of saying, like, I can't do this alone and I do deserve better?
Yeah, it's interesting. If I wanted to learn how to bake monkey bread, I'd look in a cookbook. If I wanted to learn how
Mhm,
to do the breaststroke, I get a swim instructor. If I wanted to make myself better at golf, I go to a golf pro. We all have these people in our communities that we're comfortable with seeking help from. And monkey bread, golf, and swimming are not necessarily going to improve my livelihood or my
mhm,
life physically that much. But when people talk about their bodies, physical or mental, there is this vulnerability that's there because I think it connects to mortality and being alive and living your fullest self and all
mhm,
these other things that are really sensitive topics for us. I'm 42 years old. And one of the things now that I think is I don't know how many quantity of years I have left, but I'm a damn sure make the most of the quality of years left. And so my argument
yeah,
for people about therapy is that you think you have time, but what if you don't? Because we don't know.
mhm,
So since we can't gamble on time, we can always gamble on quality. And so how can we increase the quality of your life to make your life every day that you have, every moment that you have, just that bit sweeter, that bit healthier? And one of the ways that we can do it is therapy. And I don't say that we're going to like lock you into therapy for a year or 8 months. This is not a lease. This is not anything like that,
mhm,
but we were taught at MGH and in my grad school program, therapy is very consensual. Like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And we're going to gradually walk into this therapeutic process because we know how uncomfortable it can be to talk about your emotions with a stranger. So, when you're with a therapist who really understands initially how weird therapy is, you come into a room with somebody you've never met before and you
mhm,
talk about deep, challenging emotions, and they're okay with walking you through those initial portions of it. It can be super rewarding. Our goal is to create sacred space to have sacred conversations so that you have the privacy and the resilience and the incentive to utter words that you've never uttered out loud before. I mean, just let that
yeah,
sit with you for a second. The ability to say things that have been bumping around in your head for months, weeks, years, decades, and to finally get it out in the open because a therapist or your best friend or whomever created the space where you felt like you could finally say, I think I need to get this off my chest. And for
mhm,
us as therapists, that's what we live for, those moments of allowing space for even some of the darkest and harshest things to come out so that you can see almost the weight being taken off somebody's shoulders and the ability for us to then attack it. One of the ways that I talk about it is if I said there was a monster in the next room and there were weapons right in front of that door where you could fight the monster, and I just said, hey, could you go fight that monster? You pick a weapon and you go into the room. You'd probably be unsuccessful. But if I said, "Hey, there's a
mhm,
monster behind that door, kinda looks like a dragon, it's about 15 feet tall, it's got a soft spot in its chest, it's got scales," you would take that information and you'd look at the weapons and you'd pick an appropriate weapon that would give you the best chance to solve the fight against the monster. Same thing with therapy. If you're my friend and you're asking for help, but you don't tell me what's going on, I can't pick the right weapon, or I'm gonna get lucky if I pick the right weapon. But if you disclose what's going on, if you go into it with a little bit of detail or a lot of detail, now we know what's going on. Now we can pick the right tool or the right weapon to slay that monster or to fix the problem or the challenge that you're having. So therapy allows us to get more specific so that we can really diagnose and then pick the right tool to help either friends, families, clients, whomever in our community, because my clients are just as important to me as people who are close to me in a non clinical way because they all occupy the same community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I know at least for me, it took me a couple therapists to get to the one that I resonated with. And I think, I've had other people tell me, "Oh, I hate therapy. The therapist just says the same thing over and over." And it's like, well, then find one that resonates with you. And I firmly believe that if you truly value your quality of life and you truly want to change, you will do whatever it takes. If that is going through 50 therapists or whatever, that's what you're going to do. And I know not everybody is there mentally, right? But it's just so crucial to recognize how loving it is to do that for yourself. And that is, in my opinion, the biggest form of self-love that one could give to themselves is say, I need help and I can't solve all of this by myself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think there's some people who are not ready for therapy. And I would say to those
Mhm.
people, you're probably ready. But if you're really not, then the responsibility is on you to become your own therapist. And to become your own therapist, the first thing you need to do is decrease or remove judgment from the way that you view yourself. Because judgment, one of the hardest things to do as a therapist is to learn how to be non judgmental in front of the people who are coming into your office seeking support. But that's where good therapy comes from. And so if you can
Mhm.
internalize that and use that non judgmental view of yourself, to be able to analyze, be critical of, be curious of the things going on in your life, you're starting to do the things that you would do in therapy that are going to help you cultivate a healthier mindset, a more holistic view of yourself, and build some of the resilience that's going to help you accomplish incredible things. But if you still hold on to that evaluation, that judgment, that critique, you're never going to be able to fully get there. And really, what does judgment actually do? Does nothing.
Right.
Judgment doesn't get you
Right.
any closer to any of the answers you're trying to get to. It might motivate you by fear, but it's not going to motivate you by experience and by intelligence that's going to help uncover the answer. And my goal is I want the answer. I don't want to feel bad. I don't care about feeling
Mhm.
good either. I want this problem, this challenge, this weight on my shoulder to get off, period.
Mhm.
And the cleanest and most efficient way to do that is to not be judgmental towards yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that brings us into a very good segue of something that I've marked in your book.
Mm.
The chapter on uh where is it? The oh, right here. Mastering uncertainty, and then you also have another chapter about self-compassion that I want to kind of touch on. But I know it doesn't sound related, but the mastering uncertainty I think is related to that, right? Because you have so many good pieces of information in this chapter where you essentially say like you can't control everything. You can't control everything. And you have a great quote by Steph Curry in this chapter where he's talking about, I'm feeling anxious, but it's excitement, etc. And I think that's so linked to people, maybe starting therapy. You can't control everything, but here are some tools that help you get there, essentially. So why this chapter essentially? Why is this part of the flow state? And we'll get into kind of that nuance in your book, but why this? Because I've found this chapter to be important, obviously, and I think uncertainty is something that people just ruminate on, and you put that in your chapter as well, what your brain actually does. So what does your brain do?
Well, so your brain is a prediction machine, right? It's trying to
Mhm.
predict outcomes in advance so that it can prepare you to stay alive, basically. So one of the reasons why we have discrimination, we have prejudice, we have stereotypes is because that's how your brain operates. It's trying to say, I see one thing and I'm going to assume it's like the last thing that I saw so that I can put it in an easy category, whether it's a person, place, or thing. And so for Kim and I, we felt like that resonated with not only how your brain categorizes things, but also how your brain experiences emotions. Go back to public speaking. If you had one bad public speaking event, your brain is going to stereotype or discriminate against other speaking events because it's going to assume that the same pain that came from the first one is going to always come from these similar types of events. It's like that once bitten, twice wise phenomenon where you
Mhm.
don't allow yourself to go through a similar painful situation. That being said, our world is not only based on unpredictability, but it thrives when things are unpredictable, when situations
Mhm.
evolve, when people change. And so for us to get caught up in that change, to allow that change and that unevenness to positively inform us and let us evolve and change, we need to get used to it. And it's the idea of, and the metaphor that I have, and that both Kim and I really feel strongly about is surfing, right? You wait for the
Mhm.
wave. You don't manufacture the wave in surfing. You
Mhm.
you take what the ocean provides and you are thankful for it. If you're looking for that 100-foot wave like in the HBO show, it may be there for you and you appreciate it. But also if the ocean gives you a 10-foot wave, you ride the heck out of it. And so
Mhm.
not being there looking at other people and what they have and comparison shopping or what ifing, but again, with that quality of life saying, okay, I don't know what's coming down the road, but since I don't know how many days, weeks, months, years left, I'm going to lean into whatever uncertainty is coming so that I can enjoy myself, that I can be successful, that I can feel love and I can spread love to other people. But if I don't feel comfortable in that uncertainty, I'm going to be wasting valuable lifetime thinking about what's coming next or regretting that I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. And if I'm an
Yeah.
adult, I don't have time to regret things selfishly. I need to keep moving forward and providing for myself, providing for my family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just I think that's the biggest thing is especially as we get older, um, you realize eh, I look back on things that I did that I have regret on, right? But I can't harp on it. All I can do is move forward from the now. And it's just you realize this, and I'm a parent and you're a parent as well, but you realize how short time is and how fast it all goes. And I mean, the uncertainty and like you said, your brain's a prediction machine and you're trying to, you know, put all these variables together and we just can't. We can't. So, in your book, you spoke about some things to do. What would you recommend for those listening when they're facing uncertainty? How do they dial it down?
Yeah, I just before I touch on that, to piggyback off something you said as a parent. So it's an interesting story. So our son used to not be able to do thumbs up when he was a baby. So
Uh-huh.
he used to go like this. So it'd be like thumbs up. And then he got gun hands, thumbs up. And then randomly one, and it was funny. It was like adorable. It was this thing that he used to do. And then one day he did this and I
Mhm.
lost it. I bawled. I called my
I
wife.
know.
I was like, it's over. And he used to say same, same. He wouldn't say same. He goes, same, same. And then one day, he just stopped saying it. And so there's
I
this
know.
grief and loss every time your kids get older, where you want them to get older because you're like, oh, I get to do all these new things with them. They get to talk, they get to speak. But you don't know the death or the day that that thing that was so adorable that defined your relationship with your kid was just going to end. And it was this moment of great, incredible loss that both my wife and I felt while also being able to enjoy the new horizon. One of the parents
Mhm.
mentioned that it's like you only get 365 days for your son to be 7, and then you get only 365 days for your son to be 8. And that really made me think about how I approach situations where if I'm in a crabby mood, which happens, psychologists get into bad moods. But if I'm in a crabby
Yeah.
mood, how do I approach that coming home? Because I only got so many days with little dude when he's under the roof of our house,
Mhm.
or he's 7 years old, or that he's going to want to sit in my lap and hang out, watch TV, and play video games. And so being able to understand that my feelings may be elevated, they might be out of sorts because of something that happened at work or something that happened at home, but my intention, my commitment being, I really want to be a good dad. I really want to give him all the time and energy that he can have so that we can create these memories. Yeah, I want him to
Yeah.
have really good memories of his dad, but I'm also really selfish too when it comes to memories. I want some damn good memories too of time with my
Yeah.
son. And so really being intentional about that is super important. And I really thank and appreciate my wife for like helping me wrap my head around how to be in the moment and not just go from, I got to be a provider and that's the responsibility of being a parent to like, let me just sit down and be stupid and goofy and wrestle on the floor and make my silly voices and make my corny dad jokes
Mhm.
because that's what he's going to remember. He's not going to remember that I was able to pay for summer camp. He's going to remember that like
Right.
we used to wrestle on the floor.
Well, and you're okay, oh, I was literally talking to someone about this too. Like, the things that we show our kids, and for full disclosure, I'm divorced, and we were talking about my decision to get divorced, right? And how it came about of what I was showing my child. And when we were married, we did not work, and afterwards, I became such a better parent. And I was able to start actually living and making memories because that weight had lifted of that relationship that wasn't working. We are now better parents, co-parenting, we get along better, etc. And it's just you being present in the moment, and I became far more present by leaving that situation with my child, that it's just so I can't explain it, but it's just this is what my child's going to remember. And not only are you being present, but you're creating safety, right? And you're also
Mhm,
modeling like the type of parent that they will want to be when they get older. And I think that that's just so beautiful,
mhm, mhm,
honestly, because especially if they know, hey, dad works super hard and he's super busy, but he always makes time for me. That's what I'm going to do when I'm older. I know for me, my parents worked very hard, but they were at every single sporting event that we had, and we all played competitive soccer.
mhm,
And as you can imagine, that is a lot of busy schedules. A lot of busy schedules. There were three of us, and we all played competitive soccer. My brother and sister went on to play in college out of state,
mm,
and my parents were at every game.
mm,
And that's the model that I now get to live from, where I show up for my child regardless of what's going on because my parents did that.
mhm.
And I think that that's such an important framework of parenthood, or just however you want to frame that. But I don't know where I'm going with that, but
No, it's true. I mean, I think so. There's a couple of values that drive that for me. And I even say this to our son. It's like, I want you to know and I want you to feel that like I disgustingly love your mother. Like, I want you
mhm.
to be to the point where you're like, "Dad, that's enough." Because
Yeah.
for both his mom and me, that's the standard under which we want him to grow up to and to aspire
Yes.
to not only receive love from people, platonic love, friendship love, uncle and aunt love, but also romantic love when it comes to,
Mm.
deciding whether to be in a casual situation or leads to marriage or just really good lifelong partners. Like that's what the
Yeah.
expectation is. And wherever he chooses to deviate from that and make his own definition of love, at least he's got a starting point there and he can figure out where he would like to fall in line and what fits with his values. And then also just this idea of, and even communicating this to him now, the most absolute important thing that you do every day that brings joy to my heart is that you wake up in the morning. The morning
Mm.
that you don't wake up will be the saddest day that I hope I will never see. So even
Yeah.
though you might have crushing defeats on the athletic field, even though you might have really bad breakups, you might get F's on tests, nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, will be as devastating to me as that. And so when we put that in perspective for him, to let him know that that's how we feel, it kind of puts oxygen back in the room and makes us really say, like, yeah, spilling milk all over the floor, probably not ideal. Like,
Mhm.
being late for school, probably not ideal, but it's not the end of the world because we know what the end of the world is when we don't have
Yeah,
the opportunity to spend time with each other.
1000%. And not only that, like, again, you're normalizing mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And you're normalizing, like, mistakes happen, and you're setting that framework for him to succeed in life
Yep.
and be like, "Oh, just because I made a mistake doesn't mean it's the end of the world." I mean, I know with my son, uh, same way. It's like, oh, he'll be like, "Mama, I made a mistake, but that's okay. Mistakes happen." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Absolutely, my dude. Like, absolutely." Going through like the potty training phase was real fun. But he would be like, "Well, I, went potty in my pants, but it's okay. Mistakes happen." And I'm
Mhm.
like, 1000%. So hopefully, I hope I'm doing something right. But after reading your book, clearly I am because, you guys talk about normalizing mistakes for a
Mhm.
better outcome. But kind of going back to that, do you feel like that's building resilience? I know that there's a chapter on building resilience. Is that kind of similar to what you feel like building resilience, normalizing mistakes, and essentially learning from it? And
Totally. Totally. If you're not comfortable with mistakes, you can't rebound from mistakes. You're going to be spending so much time soothing yourself that you're going to miss the opportunity to, dust yourself off and try again. And so, and
yeah.
like you were saying, mistakes are part of learning, right? Like when we were learning our alphabet or learning how to do math, we made tons of mistakes. And if we gave up
Mhm.
in those moments of trying to learn those things that are pretty essential to being adults, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's weird how we recognize that a lot of our learning comes from a lot of mistakes, but then as adults we get so um, egotistical about certain things that we assume that these certain things can't have mistakes and that I should never make mistakes. Um, my whole thing is mistakes happen. You just want to gather data from them. And you obviously want to limit your mistakes, but you shouldn't
Right.
assume that if you're trying to be great at something, that you're not going to trip up along the way. Like that, I don't know where that thought comes from.
Yeah. So what do you say whenever you're working with somebody, like, to reframe that? And w like, if they truly are stuck in their own head about making mistakes, like, what do you say to them? To be like, no, 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 you just said it, but it's like, how do they reframe it to make it their own thought naturally?
Well, I think as a therapist, you have to think about your individual relationship with folks. So some people are like me, they really love humor. So I will joke
Mhm.
with them and I'll quote The Hangover, like, but did you die? Like, oh, I lost the state championship, but did you die? And they can handle that. But if I do that to the wrong person, it's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
For the people who are more serious, we acknowledge the pain, right? I'm never in a situation trying to dismiss how somebody feels about an event. More so, I'm trying to hold up a clear mirror for them to truly see themselves, truly see the world, so that they can put their event in context, be able to understand it better, and be able to have a cleaner, clearer, holistic analysis of it, as opposed to an analysis that's there. And then on top of that analysis, smothering it is judgment and being self critical and being biased towards myself or towards the world in a negative or positive way. And so once we're able to take all that crud off the situation, then we can look at it for what it really, really is. And when we look at it for what it really, really is, oftentimes, there are obviously outliers. It's not as big as we made it up to be. And when we can look at it
Yeah.
for its actual size, then we can have an actual reaction. If I'm reacting 10 out of 10 in terms of fear and anger for everything that I do, then me um, I'm trying to think of something small. Me locking my keys in the car is going to be a 10 out of 10, but also me um, leaving my son at football practice would be a 10 out of 10 too. And those are two totally
Mhm.
different things that should have totally
Yeah.
different reactions and have totally different consequences. But if we're reacting as if they're the same, then we have no way of modulating and augmenting our emotions for what really matters and what's really going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of that is self-compassion, as I had briefly touched on, which is a chapter in your book. Like, it I and as I had mentioned, giving yourself admitting, like, "Hey, I need help," or whatever is, in my opinion, I don't is one of the strongest forms of self-compassion and self-love that you can give yourself. But why is self-compassion so important to be successful in life, or to be successful in whatever you're going to try to achieve?
And this may sound cynical, and I don't mean it cynically, but you can't count on other people. You can't. Um,
1000%.
you can't count on other people until you can count on yourself. And then once you can count
Mhm.
on yourself, then you can count on other people. And I kind of think of it as, Lord of the Rings, those old tower wizard goblin movies where somebody's storming the castle. And you always have
Mhm.
those knights or those archers who, right in the face of death, they're still pulling back their bow, still trying to fight. Like, that's got to be you. It can't be,
Mhm.
well, I expect my mom to be that person, or I expect my wife to be that person, or I expect my best friend to be that person. If the castle is you, parts of you have to be there till the last arrow's drawn, until the last heartbeat is coming from you. And when you have that type of almost like self-defense, home security system for yourself,
Yeah.
then it allows you to be more expressive towards other people in your life and other opportunities because you know that your house is safe, your internal self is safe, and that any um, burglary or attempted burglary inside is going to be defended by something. But if you're always counting on other people to protect you, to watch over you, to keep you safe, most of the times you'll probably be fine, but then there's going to be those people who are going to take advantage of it or situations that people just can't help you through. And then the other thing is the person you talk to your most in your life is yourself. The first person you talk to when you wake up, it's your voice, having that dialogue. The last person you talk to before you go to sleep, your voice, having some type of dialogue. So that relationship with self has to be on point because you're spending the most time with yourself than you will spend with anybody else in your life. And those raising
Yeah.
toddlers like we did, you would assume it'd be your toddler, but it's all it's probably your toddler for a while. And then once your toddler gets older, it's you. It has to be you.
Yeah. Well, in self-trust, I have found just in, like, my own journey, I trust myself to do whatever I set my mind to. And I have so much to the point of delusion, Dr. Jenkins, self-trust in my ability to achieve whatever I wanna achieve. And I think that's where so many people, does that mean I don't have doubts? No, but I trust myself so deeply. And I think so many people lack that. And building that self trust through therapy and whatnot has been such a game changer in my life. Such a game changer. And I have seen things just completely change overnight because of that self trust and self compassion, essentially, to be like, no, like, I am in control of my life. No one else but me. And I tell people this all the time, like, you are the author of your life. No one else. You write the story, you hold a pen, write the book, the chapters, whatever. If you don't like it, write a new book. And I think that's where so many people get hung up, is they don't believe that they're in control because their mindset's not there.
Right. Right. And again, like, and I think you mean this as well. Like there are definitely systems that can keep you from being able to achieve certain things, whether it's
Mhm.
biology, right? Like I'm 6'1". I ain't dunking. Like I'm not playing
Right.
in the NBA. I could try as hard as I want. I'm still not playing in the NBA. Or it could be systemic issues that keep you from, getting jobs that you need or appropriate mortgages and things of that nature. And so
Mhm.
we're not dismissing that, but in the context of the other things in your life that you feel like you can governor and have control over, which is again part of that everyday relationship with yourself, you do have control
Mhm.
of that. And we do have an obligation to live out our best years, however many we have, with at least a good relationship with ourselves, regardless of what's happening outside in the world in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings me to the first chapter of your book. talking about the power of play and essentially, finding joy. And that was something that you and I spoke about early on because I was like, I'm so glad you put this in there. And you're like, actually, that was Dr. O'Brien's idea. And like, give her
Yep.
kudos. Why is it so important to find joy and in whatever you're doing, whether that be playing a sport or in a relationship or a job or whatever? Why is that so critical? Why was that the very first chapter?
So I guess the short answer would be play is the best way that we learn. When we
Mhm,
were little kids, we learned through play. We'd play hide and go seek, duck, duck, goose. We had really cool teachers that would incorporate math and reading into games so we
mm,
could learn things. So that helps us learn when we were babies and toddlers, but also helps us learn as adults. And then for both Kim and I, we believe that like we have a duty to inject joy into the things that we do. And if we're
mhm,
going to play basketball, why not play basketball with joy? If we're going to hang out with our friends, why not hang out with our friends with joy? And joy being the ingredient that allows you to have gratitude both in the moment and looking back on some of your experiences. So if you're going through experiences, not prioritizing joy, think of joy as the magnet that brings gratitude to that situation from afar. So you're not going to be able to remember and hold those moments as well as you want to. And then, again, as a 42-year-old, why can't I be playful now? Is play only
mhm,
reserved for young people and youth? Like, why can't I have this fun relationship, this enduring relationship with play for the rest of my life, even though I have all these other obligations and responsibilities that are important? A lot of them I can still incorporate play, humor, joy into, but I think society tells us, well, you got to grow up. You can't play games anymore.
mhm.
It's like, well, maybe you don't want to, but I do because it helps me feel connected, helps me stay present in the moment, and helps me stay also having connected relationships with other people and the people that I'm playful with.
Yeah, and you brought up gratitude. I'm a big fan of gratitude. Even Dr. Huberman says that gratitude is kind of crucial to living a fulfilled life. You have a chapter on it. Why are you linking play to gratitude and experiences?
Well, I think play is an opportunity to be so in the moment that it
Mhm,
provides an environment where gratitude can sprout and grow. And I think through play, it helps us get connected to other people. We think about social justice movements, back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of them revolved around sports or music because they were
mm,
playful and they were arenas where joy was easily found in those two kind of genres of community connection. And so if we're able to create more opportunities for play, it kind of takes the outside world and kind of softens it a little bit and really
mhm.
directs our focus to what we're doing here and now with the people that we're doing it with. And it creates this community gratefulness that then just bounces and reverberates off of each other. And so I would wish that we had more time for play, but I know, with the financial situation and other situations going around in society today, a lot of people don't have time to explicitly play. But there can be a lot of
Mhm.
moments for implicit play. Like, I tell jokes to people. I try to be nice and kind to people. Um,
Yeah.
I try to be silly when I can. Those moments of joy, albeit brief and short, can really make somebody's day because one of my mentors, Dr. Steve Durant from MGH, he would always say, you never know what somebody's walking around with. That person that
Mhm.
you hold the door for at the coffee shop might have just gotten the worst news of their life. That barista at the coffee shop might be really struggling with a romantic relationship, and you treating them
Yeah.
with a basic level of humility, or if you have the energy and intention for it, giving them all that you got, giving them the best of
Yeah.
yourself could really make a difference. And so, following Steve's lead, I really try to walk in that space as much as possible. And when I have these moments that could be seen as brief or throwaway moments with people, I really kind of think like, what would it mean for me and for them if I gave them the best of me in this one
Yeah.
minute, 5 minute, 10-minute interaction? Because I can and I should. And so I try to.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've very much lived from the mindset of treat others the way that you want to be treated,
Mhm,
right? And I know that's easier said than done when you yourself are having a bad day, but kind of circling to the gratitude thing again, there's something that I do personally, and it's something that I ask a lot of people, especially when they're having a bad day. I'm like, okay, name three things that you're grateful for.
mhm.
Name three things that you're grateful for today. Why is gratitude so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely that anchor that brings you back to reality when I'm thinking about things that I'm grateful for or gratitude. I can't be thinking too much in the past. I can't think too much in the future, those things that worry about me. I'm thinking about things that bring me joy and lighten me up. I know it's been this thing that I'm going to bring up next has been kind of like an Instagrammable thing. So now it's kind of
Mm,
corny, but this idea that if I were to be 80 years old and go to sleep one night and then wake up in this 42-year-old body today, miraculously, how would I want to spend my time? And so, given some of the circumstance in my life professionally, where I've seen people get older, not be able to do things physically or mentally or emotionally that they used to be able to
mm,
do and have regrets about it, seeing my own body change athletically, having death and loss in my life,
yeah,
I really do think like these are the best years of my life, not because they're the years that have been going great, although they have, but because these are the years that I have. These are the moments that I have.
yeah,
Today is the best day of my life because it's available to me. And for the most part, I feel physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy. And I try to do things for the now in celebration of the future self that might not get the opportunity to do it, either because I'm no longer on earth or because my health has failed or changed. And so that really helps me stay in the moment. We kind of mentioned that with kids, right? My kid's seven
yeah,
and a half, and yet in 11 and a half years, he's going to be leaving the house. Like, I can still have a great relationship with my son when he's 18, 19. I'm not going to be able to cuddle with him on the couch in the same way. And so,
right.
really being able to take advantage of those moments so that my future self could say, as he's putting head to bed, like, you lived out as much of your life as you could. And I'm so thankful for that because I'm filled with all baskets and trucks full of memories that we are able, on days we are able to take advantage of and live to the fullest. Now, over 42 years, I've missed some days. I haven't been able to collect all of them because I haven't lived intentionally in all of them, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to make sure that I got more days that I'm taking with me than days that have kind of fallen off.
Yeah, and what got you to that mindset? What got you to that mindset of, "Okay, I only have this," or we don't know how much time we have, like, who knows, right? None of us.
Right.
And I live from that same mindset. If I was actually listening to a Steve Jobs, his commencement speech, and he talks about essentially mortality, where if today were my last day, would I wanna be doing what I'm doing now?
Mhm.
And hearing that kind of flipped my mindset where I'm like, "No, like, I'm living for the now because I don't know how much time is left."
Mhm.
And I talk about time being finite. And how did you reach that point? And why is that? Because you've spoken about it several times over the course of this interview. Why is that so critical, do you think?
So I had a really, I'd say few instances over my life, but the one that was most sobering and I think kind of started it was, I think it was junior year in college. I had a practicum at Wake Forest Medical Center. So I was going to Guilford College in
Mhm.
Greensboro. Wake Forest is in Winston-Salem, not too far away.
Yeah.
So I was pre-med. So I was working in a surgical unit, cleaning surgical instruments. And then one day, the supervisor came in and said, "Hey, we have an autopsy. Would you like to watch the autopsy?" Because I was able to watch some of the sports medicine surgeries. And without knowing what I was getting into, I said yes. And one of the most influential moments of my life, not necessarily the gruesomeness of it, because I was able to kind of put it in the category of this is a medical procedure. But during the autopsy, the dude's phone rang because people were
Yeah.
looking for him. He had money in his pocket. He had peppermints in his pocket.
Mhm.
He had a like a subway card or some type of like punch card for
Mhm.
redeeming something, credit cards, all this stuff. And he had taken buckshot to the chest. Apparently, he was a suspect for a murder and he probably got retribution from whoever knew that he committed that murder.
Yeah.
And so, this idea of like, my money's not my money, my watch is not my watch. My watch will go on when I'm dead. The
Mhm.
contents of my wallet will go back into the banking system. Um, this scratch card that I had or this punch card that I had really won't mean anything to me once it's gone or once I'm gone. Um,
Yeah.
it just put in terms for me that were really stark and really just like intense, just how finite life was. This guy was not expecting to get shot that day. This guy was not expecting for me to see him. I had no expectation that I was going to meet this person in my life. But
Yeah.
just seeing that was really a drastic representation of how short life is. And then I think when you hit your 40s, there are people you thought you'd spend your 40s with who are no longer here. And they were just
Yeah.
as good as you, just as cool as you, just as healthy as you, just as gracious as you, just as whatever. And you realize that like life takes the good and the bad people. It's not just I have to
Mm.
live a virtuous life to survive on earth, but even if I do everything correct, something could still take me away from the people and the things that I love. And so I realized I ain't special. Everybody wants to live forever. Everybody wants to be healthy, but it never works out because everybody eventually passes away. And so if
Mhm.
I can't cheat death, the only way that I can cheat it is to make every second extend a little bit longer because I'm invested in it. So if I can make every second feel like a minute, if I can make every minute feel like an hour, if I can make every hour feel like a day, I can stretch time. And I can do that. I can do that when I'm around great people. I can do that when I'm doing art. I can do that when I'm listening to music. And I can't cheat death, but I can stretch a little extra time out of whatever finite life that I'm going to have. And that's what I hope people try to do when they're living their own life. And that's what therapists try to do when they're in therapy with people. Get them in the moment so that a second
Mhm.
sort of feels like 1.1 seconds. And a minute feels like
Yeah.
just a little bit longer. And a day feels just a little bit longer because you're invested and you're surrounded by the people that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're at the hour, and I know, I mean, gosh, I know we dove into the book a little bit, but just your takeaways from this interview was, I mean, I cried at some points, but it was incredible. And I, like I had mentioned before, I am so thankful and honored for you to be on the podcast. And I think everyone, as I had mentioned, can benefit from this book. And I will be linking it in the show notes and then whenever I promo this. But thank you. And I mean that for being here. And thank you for um, such great insights, especially about life and your mindset and being present and parenthood. Didn't expect to go on a parenthood, but here we are. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you for providing the platform to get all of that out. When two people
Yeah.
get together, it's a very unique experience. It's the most human experience we can have is two people talking, and so I really appreciate the compassion and the fellowship and the love with which the conversation happened and what you pulled out of me because I wasn't expecting to talk about any of that stuff either. But there's something just about the way the conversation flowed and the platform that you have that made it happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Jenkins, thank you again. And I will be linking your social media if that's okay
Yep.
for people to follow. And if there's any if anybody has any questions about anything, I can have them DM me. But uh, thank you, and I mean that. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend that is very present with your son and your wife. Oh, that's one thing. Being present does help time expand.
Yes.
I know it
Yes.
seems crazy, but neurologically, like when you're present in the moment, it makes time feel slower. So the more you know. But thank you again. Have a great weekend. And I am so appreciative.